Lab 2, responsible Jonathan José Lemo García, José David Luna, Rocío Beralice Arqueta Venegas y mi persona Carlos Saraí Hernández Escalante. Inventions that have changed humanity.
The dreams of flying goes back to prehistory. Many legends and myths of antiquity tell history of flight, such as the great case of the flying of Icarus. Leonardo da Vinci, amongst other visionary inventors, designed an airplane in the 15th century. Years of research by many people engineers to achieve that coverage, generated with an slow result but continue. On August 28, 1883, John Joseph Montgomery was the first person to perform a controlled flight with a hybrid than air machine, a glider. The first prepared airplane was created being claimed under, who on October 9, 1890, managed to take off and fly 50 meters with his helo. Later he repaired the first with Airplane 2 that flies 200 meters, and Airplane 3 that in 1897 flies a distance of more than 300 meters. A few years later, on November 23, 1996, Brazilian Santos Dumont was the first man to take off aboard an aircraft powered by an aeronautical engineer, thus setting the first world record recognized by the Hero Club. And French went flight 220 meters in less than 22 seconds. He flight a height of 2 to 3 meters from the ground. The first seaplanes appeared thanks to the American Glenn Curtiss in 1913. The first Ford engineer, the Leger, designed by the Russian Igor Sikorsky in 1912. Juan Guillermo Villasana created the Anauk propeller made of wood. The airplane best known and used by the general public are those for passenger transport, although general aviation and sport aviation are eagerly developed, especially in the United States. Not all airplanes have the same structure, although they have many common elements.
At present, the plane is composed of fuselage. The fuselage is the body of the aircraft, to which both the horizontal and vertical wings and stabilities are attached. Its interior is held to be hobbled to house inside the passenger cabin, the control cabin, and the cargo compartment. Its size will obvious by determined by design of the aircraft. Airfoils. An airfoil is any surface designed to obtain a reaction For when it's really motion, we repeat to the surrounding. Are two examples of airfoils are airplane wings of purple blend. Airplane wings. The wings made up of the aerodynamic surface. The province lies to the aircraft due to aerodynamic effect caused by the curvature of the upper part of the wind. The cause to hard to flow about in the accelerate on the for lower in prison, while the hard the circle under the winds. Mountains, the sand slip and reality are present, but had the same and create sign with its effect. The lower part of the wind the country to live, or for the country to action on gravity. Aerodynamic brakes. The brakes, the aerodynamic brakes are similar to a stoil, with the only difference they don't not cut off the airflow in the wind. Therefore, they do not prevent the lift, but rather increase with resisting with hardware. They are great to descend with accelerating the aerodynamic brake or to abound the wind, proof unlike the spoiler. Horizontal trailers. They are two superfaces, small, the wings hold locate in the horizontal position, generally on the rear of the fuselage, and in different position and shape depending on the density. Vertical staler. It is a fence that is hard in an upright position at the rear of the fuselage, usually at the top. Try number and sketch much by determined by aeronautical calculators according to aerodynamic and design requirements. Currently, we have the commercial invention. We have changed to live as adventurous people who travel all over the world. Commercial invention is the activity carried out by airlines dedicated to air transport of both the people and goods. In 1919, the first airs were born, KLM. October 7, Netherlands in Europe, and Avianca December 5, Colombia in America. It is the purpose of the flying that determines where a flying to fly into two categories of commercial invention, not the type of aircraft of the pilot. To section 115, operandi as the hard the taxis is considered commercial invention, while an Airbus 399 used by its owner is considered private transport.
Invention of Television. The history began in 1926 when the engineer John Logie Baird invented TV after several attempts to copy the radio's electromagnetic wave system, which a great economic effort and without receiving help from investors. John Baird managed to revolutionize telecommunication with this incredible apparatus. This, this is out on January 26. In 1926, the first images were transmitted on TV screen. It was only a few years later, in 1900, that the word became popularized when the concept TV was born. It was on the part the Russian Constantine, a scientific, and used the word in the First International Congress of Electricity. Although it would still be until it knows the facts we know its images in history. Later in 1924, John Berg continued to innovate to reduce the space between TV and transmitting waves and thus managed to transmit images on TV screen in black and white, the Nikon. Two, year, 2 years later, his invention began to gain international popularity that it had in its own in 1926. John Bell managed to conclude agreements with London and was able to transmit images in London and years later extended the distance from London to New York by means of the radio signal. After some years of the modification in 1927, the BBC made the sport public transmitted and later in 1930 managed to transmit in the United States. Evolution of the invention of TV. The decade of the 50s and of color on television. The second phase revolution in TV was with the arrival of color, thanks to the development of cathode-tooth trick cameras. The technology led to the mass production of color television. In the 1950s, the television of the decade 50 were still large apparatus were made out of a piece of furniture screen, and that followed the coloring path of that time. Official emission began in Spain in the 1950s, especially and television started programmed on about 600 TV in Madrid on the day of October 28, 1956 in the half of the afternoon.
History of TV in the 17th and 18th. With the widespread transmission of color television is general high demand for television in developed countries. In this period of time, television began to acquire a more sober design, and some television with larger screen size began to appear. A few years later, in the 1980s, the television digitalization process began, which influenced both the production of programs and the transmission until in envelope into what we know as this digital television production and broadcasting of television channel, television without programming. The 200 and flat screen, the arrival of the years, the first flat screen television taking over from tube television, the first broadcast into upper in the first decade of the new century. Different technology for flat screen television appeared, LCD, plasma. The last revolution in the television was the popularization of smart TVs, television with 100 color volume to reproduce a perfect image at 4K and evolution a reality high dynamic range HDR with a screen with longer lifespan connection without cables and with careful design that allow him to combine with the decoration of homes. History. How did this invention benefit humans? The importance of television goes through many different aspects. Although today is perhaps of the most criticized media in the first place, television can be accessible to many more people than other media, and this is so not only economic terms but also in the cultural terms. To access a newspaper, it was necessary to know how to read and write, whereas to watch television is what not necessary. In addition, television is handled with much more informal, accessible, and visually attractive or dynamic language. With this arrival in much greater than other media, such as radio of the newspaper, centrally limited to a single type of medium. Finally, television was one of the first means that allowed viewers to enjoy programs and show from other parts of the world, facilitating knowledge between cultures and the increasingly varied variety of options, movies, series, newscasts, sport programs, children's, culturals, gastronomic, EAC. This is different model of TV.